Greetings and welcome back to Doctor Who Rankings, the companion series to my other main series, Doctor Who Revisited, where I do weekly reviews of every single Doctor Who episode from 1963 all the way to 2023. This is where I rank them. As soon as I'm done with a specific Doctor, I immediately do a big ranking tier list of all the episodes I watch from that particular Doctor and see what I think about them and which ones I think are the best and which ones I think are not so much the best. Now, but by this point, I'm still uploading the review. Actually, I'm still editing some of the reviews for the John Pertwee era. But I'm doing this now so that I don't forget to do it like Patrick Troughton when I did it weeks ago. And well, whatever, wibbly wobbly timey wimey. And this comes out. This is recorded several weeks in advance of me finishing the John Pertwee era. But that being said, I love John Pertwee as the Doctor. He's my second favorite of the classics, fourth favorite overall. I mean, he's the best. He's one of the best. And I honestly, I don't think I see a single bad episode in his resume. Now, again, I don't think he's the best Doctor. There are doctors I like more than him. It's just he's the only Doctor where I don't think I can look at his resume and see a single episode I don't like. There's ones I like more than others, but other Doctors just have better episodes than his entire run. So without further ado, let me just bring this up. As you can, well, you can't see it yet. Hold on. As you can see right here in this tier list, I have 5 tiers, and yes, unlike the Troughton one, I remember why I had 5 tiers to begin with. This tier right here is the S tier. Reverse the polarity, of course, the famous line associated with this Doctor. And this will be the S tier. This is where I will put the one episode I think is a cut above the rest. Easily the by far the best out of all of these. The A tier is all praise to the Great One, which of course is a reference to the spiders. The 8 legs in A Planet of the Spiders, the last episode of John Pertwee. You Will Obey Me, of course, it's a reference to the Master. I mean, I don't think I need to explain that. Then there's the C/D tier, Good Afternoon, which is kind of a reference to Colony in Space, which is Frontier in Space, which is right here. It's where the Doctor tries to finally breaks through the door. He was imprisoned down on the ship, and then immediately after that, the guys come to take him, and he's like, "Oh, well, how very embarrassing. Good afternoon." And he tries to close the door. Yeah, one of my favorite funny moments from Doctor Who, and one of my other favorite funny moments from the John Pertwee era was not worth 15 million pins. Basically, it's from that the episode The Silurians, right here, where Peter Miles' character says to him, "You don't seriously expect this to dismantle a piece of equipment worth 15 million pounds with the screwdriver?" And he says, well, it's not it's not worth 15 million pins if it doesn't work, does it? So I just love the Third Doctor's comedy in all these situations. But all of that aside, me geeking out and gushing out about this Doctor put aside, let's get down to the business of actually ranking this wonderful Doctor's time on the show. Starting, of course, with Spearhead from Space. I almost said Terror of the Autons. That's a different episode. But yeah, so Spearhead from Space, obviously, I mean, it's the debut of the Autons. It's John Pertwee's reveal as the Doctor, because we didn't get a regeneration scene for Troughton. We're back on Earth. Doctor Who is in color now. It's the beginning of the Doctor's exile period. The Brigadier is back. It's the introduction of Liz Shaw. This episode has so much to set up. Obviously, brand new production team, brand new everything, and it excels at everything that this episode trying to do. This episode is amazing. It's definitely a contender for the S tier on the list. I love this episode, and the fact that it's a 4th parter considering everything they had to do, everything they had to work with. This episode did have the risk of being incredibly compact and stuffed full of things, and it wasn't. It's just they managed to find a perfect balance and put all these different elements together into the same episode, and actually managed to make a good 4-part story out of it. So right off the bat, I'm gonna say that this is the A tier. And yeah, well, jury's still out if it's going to end up as the S tier of the episodes. But yeah, it's definitely it's a good contender. It's a very good contender for it. But I have a feeling several other episodes are going to overthrow it. Unlike the Troughton era and the William Hartnell era, this one's slightly different because there isn't an episode I can guarantee straight off the bat is going to be the number one. Like with the Hartnell era and the Troughton era, I knew before going into this, I knew which episode I was going to put in the S tier anyway, and just bided my time until I did. This one, I'm actually not sure. This is going to be a very tough competition between all of these episodes. Now, of course, the next episode right after that is the Silurians, also sometimes known as Doctor Who and the Silurians. I just prefer the Silurians because you already know it's Doctor Who. Like, are you going to put that in front of every episode? Like, Doctor Who and the Daleks, Doctor Who and the mutants, Doctor Who and the thing. But yeah, so I think this is kind of related to how when the novelizations came out, I think they started with the John Pertwee era, and like all the novelizations were like Doctor Who and the Sea Devils, Doctor Who and the Space War, which is of course the colony in space, frontier in space, Doctor Who and the Doomsday Weapon, which is colony in space, Doctor Who and the this, Doctor Who and the this. So uh, that aside, that aside, I like this episode. This episode's cool. I liked it. It's also the introduction of the Silurians. It's the return of 7-parters, which haven't been around since, I believe, the Evil of the Daleks. It's been a while since we've seen 7-part episodes, serials with Doctor Who, and I like it. I like it a lot. I love the design of the Silurians. I love that they don't make the Silurians, black and white villains. If you catch my meaning, like there's good Silurians. There's Silurians that want to help humans and help the Doctor, and then there's the bad ones that are the bad guys, and they manage to sway the neutral ones as well. I love that the episodes with the plague, which is weirdly set in the context of the post-COVID era, but all that aside, I'd say it is a "You Will Obey Me" type episode. I really like it a lot, but I don't consider it an A tier, and I don't gush about it as much as I did with Spirit from Space. That is it for this episode. Of course, the next one is the Ambassadors of Death, which, of course, that's where the introduction of the electronic whale or an electronic screen at the beginning and the end of every Doctor Who episode is. I mean, it's a staple of the Doctor Who theme song at this point. And this episode's good. This episode's really good. For clarification, there is not an F tier in this tier list. I mean, none of these are F tier because, like I said, I don't think there's a single episode of the John Pertwee era I don't like. I like all of them, as opposed to I already went over with some episodes with the Hartnell era, like, but no, not the case with John Pertwee. Even my favorite Doctors ever, like David Tennant, Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi, there's episodes I absolutely despise, but I still love the Doctors as well. I think John Pertwee is the only Doctor that doesn't have any of these episodes. So, but Ambassadors of Death, it's okay. It's all right, and I'm even willing to say good afternoon. It's not a major standout for me. I don't love it. There's some cool moments with Unit in it, cool moments with Liz Shaw in it. Some interesting plot twists. It's great to see Benton back, but overall, it doesn't really move the needle for me too much. Now, the next episode, though, Inferno. Now, this is definitely an S tier contender. Okay, so this episode starts out in an industrial uh, power plant, nuclear reactor, whatever. People start getting infected with this strange green ooze from under the earth. They start transforming into these big monsters, and that's not even half of the story because there's parallel universes, alternate timelines, an evil version of units, evil versions of all the favorite characters. And that's on top of the plot line with the nuclear reactor and everything. This episode is amazing. I love it. I absolutely love it. Definitely took a lot of inspiration from the Mirror Universe, from Star Trek. And yeah, it's one of my. Every time they introduce the Mirror Universe in Star Trek, I think this just elevates the show, especially in the class. And did I just say classic? The original Star Trek series. Sorry, my bad. But yeah, this episode's amazing, and it's even better than Terror of the Autons. Sorry, I keep saying Terror of the Autons. It's Spearhead from Space. It's better than Spearhead from Space, and just it's 7 episodes of Doctor Who goodness, and yeah, I love it, and it's got lingering the effects on all the on the Doctor going forward. And sadly, of course, it's the last episode we see Liz Shaw until, of course, the cameo on the Five Doctors. But it's this episode's great. I love it. And speaking of great episodes, finally, Terror of the Autons, the introduction of the Master, the introduction of Joe Grant, the introduction of Mike Yates, and the return of the Autons. And not just that, the Autons are scarier than they were before. But it's not just, the classic plastic shop window dummies walking around shooting people. It's everything plastic. Plastic dolls are coming to life. Plastic flowers are shooting weird liquid substances at your faces and suffocating you. The phone wires wrapping themselves around the Doctor's neck and choking him. And yes, even the ridiculous, stupid plastic chair that devours someone alive. Yeah, as ridiculous as it is, this episode really does emphasize how dangerous the Autons are, and really the idea of the Autons, the point of the Autons, which is just plastic is bad. Plastic can kill you. Be careful. Environmentalism and whatnot. But I mean, this episode, what really, really elevates this episode is the Master. They open with the Master's TARDIS landing, and right immediately off the bat, he establishes himself as a major threat, a major villain. And I love their stupid, ridiculous Time Lord that just pops out of nowhere to warn the Doctor, dressed like a regular English British man. English British man, is that a thing? But yeah, so Terror of the Autons, absolutely perfect. I love it, and I put it right up here, above Inferno and above Spearhead from Space. And then, of course, we got the season of the Master, where the Master basically appeared in every single episode of that season. The next one, of course, being the Mind of Evil. That's another good one. It's another really good use of the Master. We get to see the Master's all the Master elements on display here. The Master of Disguise, Master Manipulator, the Master Planner, and of course, using someone else to achieve his goals, and then eventually that someone else turns on him. So yeah, this mind parasite creature turns out to be more dangerous than the Master, and it's got a lot of really cool scenes of just striking fear in people and killing people with their own fears, making a man drown on dry land, or making someone imagine he's being ripped to shreds by rats. Even what this mind parasite does to the Doctor and the Master when it attacks them. And of course, somehow merging it all together with a side plot about weapons of mass destruction or whatever, trying to destroy a peace conference. that happens on Earth that just happens to be part of this episode. That whole plot line could have been split into two different four-parters, but whatever. So yeah, it's a really good episode. And hold on, let me just check if it was. I think it was a four-parter. No, it was a six-part. Interesting. So instead of a six-parter, it could have just been a. It could have just been two completely separate four-part episodes, or at least they could have continued the side plot of the peace conference in another episode. And I think they kind of did in Day of the Daleks, unless there was a completely different peace talks. There were a lot of them apparently, when these episodes were taking place. But that being said, I'd say it's right here. It's better than the Silurians episode, but I don't think it's on the same level as all these episodes, like Inferno, Terror of the Autons, and Spirit from Space. I don't know what it is. It's good, but it's not great. It's not amazing. And now we have the Claws of Exos. First of all, full marks on the efforts on the costumes, both for these axons and when they mutate into the weird red tentacly things. But yeah, I love the design of Axos. I love the design of the ship, and it's a cool idea. Good use of the casual British bureaucrat villain character, but very much in the same vein as a Mind of Evil. It's good. It's not a standout. Like I said, I don't hate any John Pertwee era episode. It's just uh, there's the great ones and then there's the good ones. Uh, and if you really want to push it, there are even a few okay ones. So, I think even though this episode does have the master in it, I'm gonna say it's a good afternoon. It's not good enough to be an A or a B. It's a C. It's not a D. As a matter of fact, I don't even think we're gonna have a D, because I don't know, maybe one D episode, but we'll get to it when we get to it, because the next episode is, of course, Colony in Space, also known as Doctor Who and the Doomsday Weapon. It's good. It's another good one. It's one that the Master doesn't show up until like the halfway point. I think this also happens in both the other ones we just talked about. It might be. I don't know. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen those and reviewed them. But it's another good one. It's one of the good ones, and I think it's one of the more imaginative ones, especially considering we got the Doctor back out in space again. And I love that it sort of low key introduces the CIA, the Celestial Intervention Agency, which it doesn't name drops them as the Celestial Intervention Agency, but it's still a good one. I think I'm gonna put it up slightly above the Claws of Axos, all the way into the middle tier, right there. And then, of course, the season finale, the Demons or the Daemons, the Damons, whatever. I love this episode. I think the Master Roger Delgado puts his A game in this episode, and this episode from start to finish, great production, great on location filming, great concepts, great ideas, great costumes, even as ridiculous as some of them are, and just great everything. I love this episode. This episode to me is, I'm gonna go ahead and say it's another one of those contenders for the S tier. Just I'm gonna say it's better than Spearhead. Definitely somewhere in this trio of Terror of the Autons, Inferno, and the Demons, the Diamonds, whatever you want to call them. But that is it for this season. The first season that featured the Master. The next one, we've got Day of the Daleks, not to be confused, of course, with Day of the Doctor. There's a long-running history of the Doctor stealing Dalek episode titles. because they had power of the Daleks and power of the Doctor. Stay tuned for in a couple of years. We're going to have Victory of the Doctor, stealing the title Victory of the Daleks. But yeah, that being said, I really like this episode. It's great to see the Daleks back. And I will say this, if you are planning on watching this episode, please do yourselves a favor and watch the special editions version, because the original version, I mean, first of all, the special edition adds a lot, like visual effects, for the guns and the weapons and other stuff. They add more scenes of just seeing the future areas with the destroyed city under the Dalek occupation. But probably the biggest change that those episodes introduced, that the special editions introduced, they fixed the Dalek voices, which were terrible in the original, but they fixed them up with the Nicholas Briggs version of those voices, and they are amazing. They really do add a lot to the Daleks. I mean, you cannot picture the Daleks without hearing those voices. And it's a really good Dalek episode. I mean, it's an introduction of the Ogrons as well. Um, I like it, and because I watched the special editions, I'm gonna put it right here next to Spearheading from Space and the Mons. Okay, another potential contender for the S tier, the Curse of Peladon. I love this episode. I love Peladon. I just love everything associated with this planet. I wish we got to see more of this planet. This is one of those planets I wish we could see come back in the modern series with Shuri Gatwa Doctor. The King Peladon of Peladon is amazing. I love Alpha Centauri. I love that this episode introduces the idea that, oh yeah, the Ice Warriors aren't just black and white villains. They could be good guys sometimes. They actually had a reform, and I want to see more Ice Warriors in Doctor Who, and I want to see more of the good Ice Warriors instead of just the generic villainous ones. I mean, and I love them as villains, but I also love that every once in a while we get the good Ice Warriors to show up. And yeah, I just love the design of our Arcturus, and just I mean, what to do with this planet, I just love it. And I think, and Agador, I love Agador. I love the song that the Doctor sings to calm it down. But where do I put it though? Do I put it above Inferno? Do I put it above Terror of the Autons? I don't know. For now, whoops. For now, let's just put it right in between those two episodes, and we'll decide later. I think right now, these three are still the ones in contention for the top spot of the A tier, of the S tier. Sorry, the Sea Devils. I love the Sea Devils. I love the episode. And the monster again, but yeah, it's a really, really good introduction to a new iconic monster. It's a really good master story. It's a really good Joe Grant story. It's a good Doctor Who and it's a good Doctor and Joe dynamic story. It's another good episode that features the Army, in this case the Navy, very well, but there's no unit in it, which kind of drags it down a little bit. Like they keep mentioning unit, and they keep threatening that the unit keeps making threats to show up. In a sense, like they keep mentioning trying to contact unit, but they never actually do show up in the episode. And I love the master making one of his legendary escapes at the end. But yeah, I think if this episode did have unit in it, if this episode had the Brigadier in it, this might have bumped this episode up a little bit. But for me, but overall, I'm gonna say I'm curious where I should put it, below the demons or above the demonons. Ooh. Well, this episode has the Brigadier in it, so, and it's got Benton and Mike Gates in it. So what's not to like? And also this episode, but this actually is a very tight competition between Sea Devils and Day of the Daleks. You know what? I think right now it's perfect. Let's put it above Day of the Daleks, and let's move on to the mutants. This episode's fine. This episode's just fine. I think this might be the only episode to go in the bottom tier. And it's not bad. Again, I don't dislike any of the episodes in Doctor Who. There's some good characters in it, good villains. Uh, there's an interesting plot line that unfortunately ends in a Deus Ex Machina moment by the end of it. I like the creature design. I love the design of what's the guy's name? Lobot from Empire Strikes Back. What's the character's name? Sonnenberg, Sonogram, Sonic the Hedgehog, whatever his name is. Yeah, Lobot from Empire Strikes Back. He's in this episode, and he actually has speaking lines in this episode, unlike Empire Strikes Back. But overall, I mean, the mutants is fine. Yeah, that's fine. It's not bad. I think it's the least good John Pertwee story, and that's high praise. It's still 100 times better than a lot than like 20 or 30 other Doctor Who episodes, but it's the least good John Pertwee era story, in my opinion. Uh, the Time Monster. I'm gonna say this. I think this might be the. Oh no, actually, there's another one coming up later. But this is, in my opinion, the second weakest season finale. But it's still good. I mean, it's still I still like it. I still enjoy it. It's another good master story, and this episode does have a lot of potential in it. I love the set design. I love some of the concept that this episode introduces. It's great to see Atlantis again. I love the scene with the Doctor's TARDIS inside the Master's TARDIS, and they keep trying to one up each other. It's very reminiscent, or rather, clearly it inspired some of the scenes from Curse of Fatal Death. If it wasn't for that stupid, god awful TARDIS design, which actually, come to think of it, it's the background of of this of this stream. Hold on. Yeah, so if there wasn't for that god awful TARDIS design, it might have been a bit higher on my list, but it is what it is. So yeah, it's a good season finale, and oh my goodness, Ingrid Pitt. Like, all you need to know about this movie is Ingrid Pitt. If you're on the fence about watching this, just look up Doctor Who Ingrid Pitt, and you're welcome. But yeah. Also, Darth Vader's in this episode, David Prowse. So actually, even though I think it's the weakest of the season finales, it's still really good. I'd put it above Colony in Space, and maybe even above the Silurians. It's a really good episode. I love the scene of the Doctor and Joe in chains in the dungeon, and he starts talking about the what's his face the Hermit, which of course shows up a couple of seasons later. But yeah, great episode, really good episode. Not great, but really a lot of fun. Oh no! Oh boy! Oh, this episode actually might take the cake. This might actually be the S tier. I don't know anymore. The Three Doctors. Oh wow! Decade anniversary. First multi-doctor story. Patrick Troughton's coming back. Even William Hartnell shows up for a couple of scenes. We got the introduction of Omega. The Doctor's exile is lifted. Lots of interesting concepts. Lots of really creative and innovative costumes, great set design, and just this episode just works on so many levels. I love it. I absolutely adore it. They went back to a normal looking TARDIS design, thankfully. And yeah, this episode's got everything. It's got funny, it's got good characters and good character interactions. And yeah, even some of the visual effects, as dated as they are, they I think they still look great for the time, considering when this episode was made. So right now, I'm gonna put this at the clearly at the A tier. Is it better than Terror of the Autons though? Ooh, that's. Mm. Well, for now, I'm gonna say yes. I think I prefer the Master as a villain over Omega, but I think Omega's performance in this one episode was good enough to surpass the Master. Well, it didn't really surpass the Master, but just this episode has so many other things going for it in addition to Omega that really bumps this episode up a lot for me personally. And speaking of the Doctor now having his exile lifted, now the Doctor can travel the universe again, and the first place he goes to is Carnival of Monsters. And yes, I'm using this picture to represent this episode. Well, the clearly they wanted to go as outlandish as they possibly could with the costumes on Vorg and Sherna, which is in complete contrast to the Interminorians in this episode. The colorful, crazy, wacky costumes with the uh, monochromatic, boring looks of the Interminorians. And you know what? This episode is more than just these two characters. It's the mini scope the Doctor and Joe are trapped in. They walk around in the SS Bernice. They meet Drashigs. They go inside the machine. Wish we got to see more places inside the machine, but I think what we got was more than enough. And yeah, this episode is really good. I love it. I really love it. It's oops, sorry. I think it's another one of those candidates for the A tier, not for the S tier. It's not an S tier level episode, but I think it definitely goes up in the A tier for me, and possibly even above the Sea Devils. Yeah, I think that's a good spot for it. Now, Frontier in Space. This episode, not really one of my favorites growing up. Definitely one of those episodes where I appreciate a lot more as an older person, as I got older and wiser. Yeah, I this episode really grew on me over time. I like the Draconians design, not so much the characters, but they have very fascinating lore behind them in expanded Doctor Who media. They've got very interesting personalities. But overall, I mean, oh yeah, the Master shows up somewhere late, and oh yeah, even more, the Daleks also show up later in the episode. But yeah, this episode to me it always just felt like a stepping stone to reach Planet of the Daleks, which is my favorite of the two, and I much prefer Planet of the Daleks over Frontier in Space. I'll say it's above Colony in Space. It's above Silurians. That's I think that's about as far as I'm willing to go to push with this episode. And then of course we've got Planet of the Daleks with the introduction of the Dalek Supreme, and I love the planet Spyridon. We got to see the Thals back again, and just what a creative episode all around, and the great set pieces. I love the Dalek voices in this episode. I like the Spyridonians. I like the Spyridon city, which then serves as the Dalek base. I mean, the liquid ice idea, ice geysers, or whatever, the stones that absorb the heat and expel it at night. This planet Spyridon really feels like it really comes alive. The planet itself almost feels like a character in and of itself. Hence the name Planet of the Daleks, and the Dalekata Army, as I like to call it. This episode's got a lot going for it. I'm not sure it's an A. It might be at the top of the You Will Obey Me, or right here at the bottom of All Praise to the Great One. Which should I go? I think I'd put it right now at the top of the You Will Obey Me tier. And now we're on to the season finale, which in my opinion is the weakest out of all of them, the Green Death. This is the picture I'm going with because it's funny. All right? I like your handbag, Doctor. Well, really? Well, be careful I don't smack you with it. I love that moment. But overall, like, this episode kind of doesn't feel like a season finale to me. It feels like a mid-season episode, uh, minus the fact that Joe leaves at the end. I mean, I think I don't know. I don't see it as a big enough threat to warrant a season finale. Like, actual demons from the dawn of time trying to wipe out the earth, or an ancient time uh, entity, or an omnipresent, omnipowerful time entity under the control of the master, or parallel universe stuff that could end up destroying the world if not careful. Like, those are season finales, in my opinion. But yeah, this episode it's fine. I mean, it's a middle of the road episode, so that's why I think it should go here in the good afternoon tier, but at the top, because actually, you know what? This episode does get a couple of extra points. You know why? Stevens, the voice of uh, the supercomputer, the boss, as they call him, and we'll talk more about the actor in a few episodes. But before that, we have to talk about the Time Warrior. I love this episode. The introduction of Sarah Jane Smith, the introduction of the Sontarans, and just it's a good unit story, despite the fact that unit's not really there all that much. I mean, this episode it was a really good introduction of two great characters, Jingo Links and Sarah Jane. Love the usage of Sarah Jane in this episode. And yeah, people who know me know that Sarah Jane is my favorite companion of all time. And even Boba Fett shows up in this episode. He's the archer guy. And yeah, great set pieces. It's a really good villain in Lord Irongron. Great usage of the Doctor's ingenuity and cleverness. So yeah, why not put this episode in one of the higher tiers? Is it an A tier level episode, or if it's a B tier level episode? That I believe is the right question. So I think for lots of different reasons, I whoops, it's not the S tier. Sorry, my bad. But I'd say it's either here at the bottom or just above Spearhead. You know what? Let's keep it here. I think right above Spearhead from Space is a good enough place to leave it as. And next, of course, is Invasion of the Dinosaurs, right? Because the first episode just named Invasion. You don't know what the invasion is of yet until you watch the full episode and you realize that, oh yeah, dinosaurs just randomly show up all over London. And then, but here's the thing though, the dinosaurs are kind of a side thing. They're a side product, a byproduct of some time related experiments being conducted. And while I don't think that the idea of just killing the world and leaving it to the next generation of select people, I don't think that concept in and of itself doesn't much work for me. It's, I don't know. I feel like if they just focus more on having dinosaurs walking around and stepped a bit away from that plot, I might have liked this episode a lot more. But I mean, this episode does have some interesting moments, and obviously Mike Yates turns on everyone and betrays his friend. But I mean, he does it for good reasons. I would think. So I put it next to the Time Monster. It's not too good, but it's also not bad at all. Um, Death to the Daleks. I kind of like this episode a little bit. And I like the this character right here, Bilal, which I believe is the oldest person who ever acted in Doctor Who. Is the guy's like 104 now. He Arnold Yarrow, I believe the guy's name. He's still alive. The guy who played Bilal in this episode. But yeah, not a very I mean, the Daleks are kind of funny in this episode, but it's the weakest the Daleks have ever been. Like, the Daleks are pushovers in this episode. Real pushovers. They fall, they get pushed into water, they get killed off by some weird root monster twice. Uh, they get they get taken out by bows and arrows in this episode. Uh, and then of course there's the city guards that just pull a Dalek weapon out of its socket and break it in half. Like, yeah, this episode, not the best time to be a Dalek, but yeah, the I like the sentient city concept. I like some of the human characters in this episode, but overall, it's not a very strong outing for the Daleks. It's not a very good Dalek story. I would put it down here. It's not, on the level of this, but it's still good enough to count for not being in the bottom tier. And the penultimate episode, the monster of Peladon. I love that we're back on Peladon now. I mean, again, this episode just this planet is so interesting to me, and we get to see more of it and get to learn more of the people of Peladon, the some of the lower class of Peladon. I love the Queen Thalira of Peladon, and it's an interesting story. Of course, it does. One of its drawbacks is like, oh, the Ice Warriors are the bad guys again. But then they established it as no, it's a splinter group of Ice Warriors. It's not representing. It doesn't represent the whole Ice Warrior race in and of itself. But yeah, it's great to see Alpha Centauri back again. I love seeing Agador. Unfortunately, Agador kind of dies in this episode, but it is what it is. Um, yeah, it's a good episode. It's not as good as the previous Peladon episode, so I'm not gonna put it as high as that one. But I would put it above the Sea Devils, right below Carnival of Monsters. And this brings us to the final episode that we're going to talk about today, with, of course, Planet of the Spiders. And yes, this is the image I'm going for. Why? Because this.
Go. I command you, go.
I have come to give you the power you seek.
Power?
That's Doctor Who acting right there. That's like the classic example of Doctor Who. Power? I love it. John Dirth, I think the guy's name is. He's also the guy that voiced the supercomputer in the Green Death. Stevens. I just love his voice. He's got a really great voice, and the way he draws out his sentences and words, and like Power Stevens, the Great One. I love this guy, and oh yeah, it's a redemption story for Mike Yates, and giant spiders. One of them voiced by Roger Delgado's wife or widow, which technically makes her a Black Widow. But yeah, the storyline with Tommy, I think the guy's name is, the guy who stares into the Metabolus crystals, and oh yeah, Metabolus 3. You finally get to see what Metabolus 3 properly looks like, and the whole attempted trips to Metabolus 3 throughout the previous season finally makes sense. The Hermit shows up. We learn more about regeneration. We get to see another Time Lord regenerate besides just the Doctor, and just pushing the boundaries of regeneration as much as they could at that time. This episode's a lot of fun. I really like it, and I love the Great One. All praise to the Great One. But yeah, it's is it an S tier though? Is it an S tier episode? I think it's an okay regeneration story. Very good season finale. Love the villain final speech thing, and yeah, it's got a lot of emotions. I mean, the Doctor dies in front of Sarah Jane and the Brigadier, and then regenerates. I don't know if it's good enough for the A tier, or if it should just be at the top of the B tier, toppling Planet of the Daleks. So you got Planet of the Daleks and Planet of the Spiders side by side next to each other. As a matter of fact, I'm decided. It's not as good as Planet of the Daleks, but it is definitely good to be right next to it, above the Might of Evil. And now the time has come for the ultimate decision, and I'm still struggling between these four. Sorry, I just got a message. The Three Doctors, uh, Terror of the Autons, The Curse of Paladon, and Inferno. Ooh, it's a tough one. It's a very tight four horse race, the four horsemen, if you will. But ultimately, there can only be one winner, and I think I am going to give the winner spot to, if my mouse would cooperate with me for a second. I think I'm going to put the Three Doctors at the top of the S tier, because I mean it's got three doctors in it. It's the final performance of William Hartnell as the Doctor. Patrick Troughton is back. It's the introduction of Omega with a great performance right there. Great costume designs all around, and just it's this episode's a lot of fun. We see Gallifrey more, even though we still don't know its name. We don't know it's called Gallifrey just yet, but this episode is a lot of fun, and I love it. I really, really like it. So yeah, that's my list. This episode is the one at the top of the list, and yeah, this is my every Doctor Who Third Doctor era episode rank. This is me ranking all of the John Pertwee era episodes. It's gonna be a while until I do one of these again, because I'm still in the middle of rewatching all of the Tom Baker era episodes, and oh boy, there's a lot. Full disclosure: at the time of recording this, I'm in the middle of Tom Baker's second season. I'm in between Planet of Evil and the Pyramids of Mars. So yeah, I still got a long way to go, but hey, that's just the journey of watching Doctor Who, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So thank you all for watching. If you have, I really enjoy doing these rankings. It's nice every once in a while to do a ranking video by myself on my own. And yeah, let me know which is your favorite Tom. Sorry, almost said Tom Pertwee. Let me know which is your favorite John Pertwee era episodes, and do you agree with my ranking that I just did? So thank you all for watching, if you have, and until the next time we meet, which will most likely be in a Doctor Who Revisited episode, because we got some time before I do another Doctor Who rankings episode. Until then, everybody, reverse the polarity. Hi there! Thank you for watching the video, and if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and tell your friends. I'll see you next time.